Hey, this is Seth with In Demand Career. I show people how to get jobs in digital marketing with no previous experience or even a college degree. And that includes my very special guest today, Christopher, who had offers for scholarships to go to college, yet he knew it wasn't for him and dropped out. Ended up doing a lot of odd jobs, working everything from warehouse to being a security guard. Found my course and then got a remote position at age 20, making $42,000 a year, which is just the beginning of his career. So I'm very excited to share his story with you. Thanks for being here, Christopher.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, Seth.
My pleasure. So why don't you tell people a little bit about what you're doing right now, your job right now?
Okay, so I'm working as an SEM analyst, and my main job is to basically create on new accounts when brands come in. So, every couple of weeks we upload like maybe 20 to 40 accounts. And I'm like the main person who goes through and basically takes the build that we have from the spreadsheet. We also have spreadsheets just like you do in the course. So it was very helpful. And we just basically upload them through editor. And basically, that's my main job, is getting those accounts out there.
That's awesome. That's an incredible amount of responsibility. And how much experience did you have when you got hired for this job?
5 months freelance and learning on my own.
Awesome. So we'll talk more about how you actually got the job in a moment. Why don't we talk a little bit about what you were doing before? We'll get into the job too, but I'm going to try to put that later in the interview. Why don't you talk about a little bit what you were doing before you found the course, and how old are you again?
I'm 21 now, but I got the job when I was 20.
Cool. So you were just fresh out of high school pretty much. Tell us what it was like towards the end of high school. Were you under any pressure to go to college?
Yeah, considering I was an athlete with partial scholarships, I was under a lot of pressure to go to college. And, a lot of my family is a traditional path. They're like, to have a good life, you need to do this, this, and this to get where you want to be. And I just disagree with that. I think in modern times, it's irrelevant advice, unless you actually need it.
Right. Good for you. What sports did you play? Just curious.
Football.
Okay. Well, yeah. So partial football scholarship is a lot of people's and parents' dreams. And so if you
Exactly.
and it's also, honestly though, hey, I don't have personal experience with this, just from every documentary and movie I've ever seen. It's being a student athlete sucks from what I've seen, because you have have two full-time jobs. You're playing for your team, which is such a commitment, and there's all this pressure to win and possibly go pro if you're good enough. And
exactly.
then you got to do all these BS classes.
Mm-hmm.
And the NCAA is making money, right? And you're not.
Yeah.
So that was very smart of you. So what happened before you found the course? What happened? You're in college for a little bit, and what was that like?
I was in college for a little bit. Went there for a year, got out, did odd jobs, warehouses, security guard, DoorDash, and then I knew I needed to change to find something, and I ended up becoming a real estate agent before this. Miserably failed. It's not my thing, and so I needed a switch, and I ended up finding one of your videos on YouTube and started researching the course, took the course, and now I'm here.
That's fantastic. Yeah, real estate is one of those things that it looks good on paper. It looks exciting, right? Because
you're really easy.
You're if I just sell a house, I get all this commission. Ooh, but it's not that easy. There's a lot of competition, and you have to become licensed too, right?
Mm-hmm. Costs money. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and it's all commission based. So I'm psyched that you found the course. So what was it like taking the course, and how did that go for you?
The first time I went through the course, I took a lot of notes, but I didn't necessarily listen, in the sense of in the course, you say not to start working on the website and stuff like that until you get through the course at least once. I as soon as you started mentioning the website, I started working on it halfway. So it took me a while to get through the course in the first place. And I spent too much time what website am I going to make? I spent too much time thinking about what I was going to do without actually doing it and learning. And then I got unmotivated for a month and a half, 2 months in, where I just dropped it. I was I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I'm not going to get a job. And then I eventually came back because I was like, I don't have anything else. I need to make this work. And, I basically went through the course another 2 times and did everything you told me to do. And now, I'm getting the rewards for it.
Tell us a little bit more about the application process. I know you were telling me that, again, you didn't really listen to the instructions at first and you sent out a lot of resumes and you didn't get as many responses. Tell us a little about how that went and what changed, what changed it for the better for you.
Yeah, I sent out a lot of resumes and I didn't listen to your advice about customizing them to each application and each company. So I didn't get a lot of traction with that. But as soon as I started actually listening and, actually looking at their job title and, the description and actually customizing my resume, then that's when I actually started getting traction, emails back and, interviews. So I think you definitely need to customize to the job title that you're going for.
Yeah, man. Yeah, guys. I mean, this is great general advice, even if you're not in the course. Just like I tell people, like, just the job posting is a wish list. And if people do this, though, it's so funny. Like, I've hired people and like, we're like, we need someone who has this skill, this skill, this skill. And you're looking for like something close. Like, hey, I need someone who can bake a cake and bake cookies and bake, I don't know, cupcakes. And if you're like, hey, I don't know how to bake, but I spent time in my mom's kitchen and I know about this, you might say, okay, well, let's see if we can talk. But if you show up for you send a resume and you're like, hey, I can't bake cookies, but I know how to drag race, they're not going to hire you. So that's what people do with their resumes. They like send in say, wait, we need a PPC person. They'll be like, well, I know how to do customer service. Like, we're not going to hire you. So, yeah. So that's awesome. So you started getting responses, and how was that for you? Like, were you surprised?
Yeah, I was really surprised at how, well I was doing after I started customizing resumes, because I sort of felt like an idiot. I was like, if I would have just listened, I probably would have been like a month ahead of, not banging my head on the wall, wondering why nobody's responding and I'm getting rejected.
Right. And so what was it like talking with these companies? Remember, you only have a few little experience, right? You generated your own experience. Maybe you had like your own a client or two. What was it like for the company you got hired for? How did that whole conversation go?
It went pretty well. I was upfront about I pushed what I knew. I was like, hey, this is what I know and this is what I'm really good at, because a lot of when you get farther into the interview process and they bring in let's say like an SEM manager or the director of paid media, like they did for me, you can't really, BS your way through it in the nicest way I can possibly say it, because they know what they're talking about. So I think you really have to play to your strengths and be like, hey, I'm good at this and this is what I know and I want to learn. And that was the biggest thing for me, is that they were so surprised that I wanted to learn and I wanted to get better, because I assume that a lot of people, they're just like, hey, I want this job. I know a little bit, but that's about where it ends. But for me, it was I'm coming here to learn and get better. And if I learn and get better, I'll make the company better. And they really like that attitude.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. The attitude, but did they also, you demonstrated your basic knowledge of PPC, right? Did you run your own campaigns or did you work on a client or two?
Yeah, I ran my own campaigns and I worked on one hair salon client, and I basically used that to my advantage, and the spreadsheets that you have everybody do for PPC, that was a big help as well, because at least at my company, it's a huge thing when we're uploading into Google Ads editor, having those spreadsheets. So it's pretty streamlined process getting those accounts launched.
That's awesome, man. And so yeah, I mean, what you're saying is all great. And I love that you can walk in there with very limited experience and be honest about it. And I tell people that, I mean, you can say freelance. I say yeah, it's true. Like, this is something I give people in general. It's like, when a doctor or a lawyer, they call it a law practice. They call it a medical practice because you're practicing, there's not, whether you've been doing it for 20 years or 2 days, once you start doing digital marketing, you're a digital marketer. You can say, I'm an inexperienced digital marketer, but I have these skills and I want to learn. You don't have to say oh, I'm just a college student or I'm a college dropout. I'm a digital marketer. I know this basic stuff. And yeah, you can't I'm not telling you to walk in there and say, I've managed $1 million. No, you're honest and they love your enthusiasm and your desire to learn. And so what was it like, getting hired?
It was a great experience for that specific company. I went through 3 different interviews, one with an HR guy, one with the SCM managers, and one with the director of paid media. So it was almost like the interviews were progressively getting harder and more technical. And that's where you really do have to be upfront about, like what you're talking about. But it didn't take very long. After about like maybe 5 days after I had the interview, they called me and they were like, hey, you're a perfect fit. We really need somebody like you. Like, are you willing to come to our company? So it was a big deal for me.
That's awesome, man. How did it feel to get that job offer?
It felt really good. It took a lot of weight off my shoulders because, when you're an agent, a real estate agent working on just commissions and you're not getting, a constant paycheck coming in, your back's really against the wall. So it took a lot of stress off my shoulders.
That's fantastic. And did you tell your family? Did they have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I didn't tell my family that I was going for this type of job at first. I just did it in secret. And then, when I was going on interviews, I was like, hey, Dad, I'm doing this and I'm going on interviews. And then I came down a few days later and I was like, hey, I got the job. And he was like, great. Like, that's awesome. Because, he wasn't expecting it. So it was like so out of left field.
That's awesome. Yeah. Low expectation, under promise, over deliver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And so what was I gonna say? You had these progressively harder interviews. So were they asking you more specific information about SEM and PPC?
Yeah, the first interview was with the HR guy, which not as technical, but as I got to meet the managers and the director of paid media, they were like, hey, we want to know, how would you structure an account? Like, what would you do in this situation? Stuff like that. So like knowing the structure for like PPC, at least, like knowing the structure of everything and like just like knowing all your stuff, like the basic fundamentals is a huge deal.
That's awesome. See, guys, remember he said, even though he's talking about they did get more advanced and more difficult technically, the interviews, but they're still talking about fundamental stuff I teach in the course. It's still very, very powerful, that account structure stuff. And I'm sure you utilize the checklist and all the other aspects of the PPC training. And the proof is in the pudding, as they say. So because they wanted you for the job. So this is all great, man. I'm really happy for you. And this is just the very beginning of your career. I was curious because you did mention that you're responsible for sort of the onboarding and uploading processes, but like they're not onboarding people every day. So what are you doing like day to day?
Day to day, I'm just, I'm working hand in hand with the analysts and the managers, like if they want, something changed to like, because we work on a lot of accounts. So it's like, hey, we need this specific thing that needs to be changed, but it can't all be changed at once or whatever. I'm the guy that goes in and I make sure, like to change everything and, make sure everything's all squeaky clean. And, I send out reports about like our 2-week performance and stuff like that. So like I play like a big support role as well. Like I'm not necessarily like doing all the strategy, but I am helping with the strategy. So I'm more or less being like a big, role player, as they would say in a sports term.
Right. Yes. I didn't even know that term until I was watching the Jordan documentary. I see like Steve Kerr or who's the other guy? the guy they shoot the ball to him twice a game. But no, you're basically being mentored and you're working with more experienced analysts. You're basically you're getting paid to get trained. And
exactly.
I assume they're grooming you in the future, they're going to start being able to hand you actual accounts to manage. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is the exact path line. I'm grateful to have some of the managers at my job because there's one guy there that's been doing PPC since Google Ads was doing Google Ads. He's been doing it since the early 2000s. So, I mean, I'm in really good hands there. He's seen it all. So any questions I have, I just ask him and he's like, hey, I have an answer.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. You can't, I mean, how do you put a price tag on that kind of experience? If you were in a college program, not only would you be paying them $40,000 a year instead of getting paid. You'd also have these professors who are probably so out of touch because they've just been lecturing, or, you know, they're still teaching traditional marketing, but you have access to a guy who's actually been in the trenches for 20 years, which is about how long Google Ads has been around. That's incredible. What's it like working remotely? I know your other jobs, you're always like, you know, security guard or warehouse, you're, you know, at these places. What's it like working remotely?
It's great. Knocking out that, you know, 30 to 40-minute commute from a job that you had to take. It's great. You save a lot of money on gas, you save a lot of time. You can get things done around the house as well when you're doing work. You know, it's really a relaxed environment for me. And I think it'd be really hard for me to go back to being in an office. I'm not saying I couldn't do it, but, you know, there's so many perks to being remote.
Absolutely. And so you're in communication with your team most of the day. So it's not like isolating, like there's a lot of connection.
We have daily meetings every day. And, you know, when we are going to do something, you know, if we're collaborating, you know, we'll hop on a Zoom call, and, you know, if we have any questions, we'll just, you know, we have a instant messenger system that we use at our company as well. So we're just like popping back and forth, making sure everything's going good on a project or whatever we're working on.
That's great, man. Well, listen, I'm happy for you. Oh, you know what? We'll mention this at the end. So where do you live right now?
Maryland.
And where are you thinking of moving to?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And why are you thinking about that?
Because there are remote programs out there that will pay you money if you can get accepted, and they will pay you to move to their states.
Yeah, I didn't even know about this, guys. I was going to probably talk about this earlier. Tulsa has it's called Tulsa Remote. This isn't just for digital marketing, but they want remote workers to move to Tulsa, and they'll pay like, what is it, like $10,000?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
$10,000 if you have to seriously move there. You can't just like hang out. You have to move to that city. So if you're young and mobile, that's a very exciting thing. I just had another student I'm going to interview at some point. He was also living in Maryland. He just moved to Idaho, not for a remote program, but to work at an agency. So I think it's exciting. You know, you have so much more of a richer experience if you move and you're working remotely and you're learning and getting paid. It's, you know, at least as stimulating as college, if not more so. You're not trapped in a classroom listening to outdated stuff, and you also don't have the additional pressure of, you know, playing for a team. But now you're on a team, a different kind of team, right?
Yeah, still the same team environment. We're just working towards something different. So it's not too much different.
That's great. All right, man. I love your attitude. I'm happy for you. Thanks for sharing your story with us. Is there anything else you'd like to say to me or to any of the people watching the interview?
Yeah, I would just say, you know, even when you have doubts and stuff, you really just got to push through it. I mean, like, there's going to be times when you doubt yourself, and there's going to be times where you have hiccups, where you miss an interview, or, you know, you say the wrong thing, but like, you just got to keep going. You know, these things happen. You have to make mistakes and fail to get better. You know, you're not going to get any better by just not doing anything.
Absolutely. It's true. That's really good advice. That's what Michael Jordan says. I just watched that documentary. It gets into my head, man. I love his take on failure. So you got to just.
I'll have to watch it.
You haven't seen The Last Dance?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, it's on Netflix. Check it out.
I
So,
will.
but anyway, I didn't want to leave this with a plug for a Netflix show. But you know, it's the attitude. Like, I love that about winners and champions, people who have success. They always fail on the way there. I did. Everyone you've seen in these interviews, guys, I know you watch the interviews, you think, oh, that guy, they did so great. They worked hard, and it wasn't just like an instant, you know, they didn't instantly get the job. They had to go through ups and downs. But if you stick with it and you follow the instructions, this is the kind of result that you can get. And I'm very, very happy for you, Christopher. Let's stay in touch. Yeah. And, you know, keep me posted on your progress.
I will.